So we signed Eric Singleton. Some things feels very different up in Gainesville now. We'll go over why. All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Gator Theory podcast, and we'll talk about Eric Singleton, right, who just signed, and it's a massive news for Gator Nation. It feels like something's different. I'll talk about the psychological part after, but let's actually, for those of you that aren't familiar with him, he's a huge name. If I was kind of joking with some friends, right? I actually would call him kind of like the final form of Trey Wilson, who we just lost to LSU. He's very, very quick, twitchy, right? When he moves, it looks very good. But from a production standpoint, you can see on the screen, it's like good, but not great. It's not superstar or even close to superstar level, right? His first year was actually at Georgia Tech. First and second year actually played under Buster Faulkner, and then was a very highly rated transfer portal player last year. After his second year, went to Auburn, kind of flopped, flirted with the draft, ultimately decided to come to us, right? But the perception for this guy was that he's like Trey Wilson, super twitchy, very, very, very agile, side to side, just an exciting player, right? And then his rookie year, or freshman year, 48 receptions, 714 yards, 6 touchdowns. For reference, Chim DK, first team All Pro Chim DK, uh, had a pretty good year with us, right? He had 783 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think it's 3 touchdowns, right? So a little bit more yards, three less touchdowns. Like it's about what DK was. Was he a good receiver for us? Of course. Like was it like a superstar or like an unbelievable season? No, right? So you would think going into his second year in 2024, he would have had a lot of hype, right? Because that's a very good year for a true freshman. He had eight more receptions, 40 more yards, three less touchdowns, and pretty much like similar production as a first year, right? So as far as production, he never actually took another step forward. But people still remember like Trey Wilson actually has very little production over 3 years. I know he was hurt for a lot of it. He had a decent first year. I think he actually probably had about some 100 yards, if I'm not mistaken, right? And just kind of never took off, right? Imagine if he just kind of had the same production his freshman year and his sophomore year, Trey Wilson. That's kind of Eric Singletary's path. And then he went to another school. Um, there's a clear explanation why his production dropped off, right? It was a horrible offense up in Auburn. Jackson Arnold is just not a very good college quarterback. And, Cam Coleman, who signed for like $2+ million today with Texas, and Eric Singleton, going into the season, supposed to be the best duo in college football, just never really panned out, right? So you can explain it away, but his best season from a yard standpoint is 754, worse than Jim DK, his final year with us. His most touchdowns 6, which is good, right? But it's not nothing to blow you away, right? So this is a player where there's potential. I think it's fair to expect about Chim DK level performance, given what we think is going to happen on the offense, or better, right? But you would be happy with it. But his signing, to me, feels so much more. And the reason why is because I first started following Gators football, and this is just what I think, right? I first started following Gators football in '03. So when I was around, it was that transition from Spurrier to Ron Zook, right? We still viewed ourselves as a top 10 program, but also Ron Zook was kind of killing the vibe. He was still recruiting well, but he's just not, he's no Spurrier, right? And then as we got into Urban, our recruiting dominance actually really started happening. Okay, like we were good under Spurrier, right? But like the perception was that we're out coaching people, right? We're out scheming people, and we do some good evals, but like we weren't viewed as like the ultimate bag dropping school. Once we got into the Urban era, I think we actually had our perception shifted that we were the bag dropping school. Like I remember at that time, it just felt like we had more money than other people, and we had Urban and his team of just closers. They're just closing people, used car salesmen salesmen just doing whatever, just getting it done, right? So that was actually our perception during the urban era, and it kind of carried over into the Muschamp era, which is 2012 on, right? Because Muschamp was still a really good recruiter. At least we were still like consistently in the top 10, top five. Like I remember a few years that were like two, whatever, right? But there was starting to be cracks because Muschamp was really good at recruiting defense. But the offense, and then especially the O line, he was just struggling with. He would go like year like I remember I think there was like a year where he only took two offense linemen in a year, which is unfathomable now, right? But that happened under Muschamp. And then after he got fired, when Matt came in, the perception for Matt was that the perception for Muschamp is that he's a good recruiter. He just sucks at offense, right? But like you're at Florida, you can still recruit. So like if we just had a good recruiter, we could recruit all around. And then Mac was just weird. So when he didn't consistently recruit in like the top five, the explanation was that him and his team of coaches were weak, right? And then once the Mullen era came around in I think 2018, his first year, you started getting more transfers, and then like towards the end, you started getting into NIL. That's actually when the perception that we're falling behind, like we're actually falling behind, even if we had a good recruiter, it might not be enough. Like we don't have enough money, our prestige is kind of fading. That's actually when it first set in, right? So I would say, like for me, I think I first made that realization. I think maybe like Mullen's second year, where we thought we won. We had a good first year in 2018. There's hope for the program. There's a lot of momentum at the time, right? We should be able to recruit. And when Mullen just couldn't put it together in 2019, I think that's when it first set in. Well, Mullen sucks at recruiting, or maybe we just don't have the money, right? Like that's when I started getting on message boards, and that's a common like narrative is like we just don't have the money, and that's when it first started setting in. And Billy, we talked about this. I think he's a great recruiter. The ability to actually pull in players where the product is so terrible on the field, and then like consistently sell a vision, and then pull in players, keep players from the portal, like key players, like Caleb Banks, right? Last year, our whole offensive line, Jake Slaughter. He's a good recruiter, right? But it always felt like we had become kind of like a second tier program, or maybe even danger of falling to the third tier when it comes to recruiting, because it feels like when it comes to the transfer portal, we just never have the money. Like we just don't have the money for any kind of big name player in the transfer portal. And then when Summerall came in, all of a sudden, some things a little bit different, right? He talks a little bit different. There's this energy that we haven't honestly really had since probably Muschamp came in. It's a little electric. Like we're able to actually get hyped about it. Uh, it's not like Billy for all the sunshine pumpers. Like I'm on the positive side with Mullen, with Mac. We could talk ourselves into be optimistic, but you're not hyped. Like it's pretty clear for the people that really follow this. We're starting to feel a little bit of the hype, right? The people that want to be realists, some of the people that are a little bit more pessimistic, like I'm going to wait until I see it on the field. But like everyone can tell the hype is real. And something's a little bit different, right? And then we started keeping our key players. Then we started keeping Dallas Wilson and Jaden Ball and Jaden Woods, who like players that were rumored at one point or another were probably going to go to the portal. Like Texas insiders saying this, and we either kept them from going to the portal, or in Jaden Woods' case, he went to the portal. We supposedly fought off all these schools that were bigger than us, and they kept them. Right. So it's this momentum shift that we just haven't had this narrative since 2019 when it comes to being able to spend money, and then probably like 2013, when Muschamp before his tenure just fell apart towards the end, still had enough juice where like it felt like Florida was a top school, right? But when you're fighting off other schools and you're still keeping your players, you're still playing defense, right? And we had these like little wins, the Jackson State defensive end, right? But it's a Jacksonville State player, and And yes, supposedly we fought off Georgia or Texas or whatever, but it's a Jacksonville State player, right? The one big name we had, John Taz Williams, we lost to USC. Supposedly they doubled our whatever we were offering, which feels like a psychological, it just feels like par for the course, right? We got outbid again because we can't afford it. And then all of a sudden, Eric Singleton becomes available. And you have to think, imagine if it's like Trey Wilson, who has actually stayed healthy and produced at least at his true freshman level all 3 years. Except for the third years, it was more of a scheme thing than a hem thing. And you sign someone like that a bunch of other school wanted, right? Because as soon as it was announced that we were the favorite for Eric Singleton, supposedly Texas Tech, the I don't know, the new money, if you will. They feel like they're just the guys that will spend whatever it takes just to kind of get in the game. Like they don't really care about the future. They don't care the return ROI. None of that. They're just willing to overpay just to get these players, right? So like for us, for them to join, at least the rumor to join into this bidding with this pursuit of Eric Singleton, it was between us and Texas Tech. Most people weren't feeling confident, and then boom, he actually signs with us, right? Did we outbid? Did we outspend Texas Tech? Did Summerall out recruit Texas Tech with his charm? Did he out salesman this guy? Like, what happened, right? But something happened where the perception of this is massive because this is actually the first time since I can remember, honestly, probably back to uh, maybe there was that period in like 2017 where we pull like Jamar Chase, Matt Corral, whatever. It like it actually feels like, hey, we're able to go on the offensive and recruiting again, right? Like we kept our players, Summerall kept most of our recruits that were committed to Billy, and then now we're actually able to take the first punch to go a little bit on the offense when it comes to recruiting. I don't know what's going to happen on the field, right? Because the vibes are high. The vibes are super high, but then whenever we're very hyped, right? There's probably stuff that we're missing. There's like a bunch of uncertainties, right? There's promise on the offensive line, also a lot of unknowns. There is ways we could talk ourselves into being super excited about the quarterback position. Still a lot of unknowns. Uh, Defensive tackle, we're projecting like the two freshmen last year, Mbachu and McLeod, showed a lot of promise, right? Weren't consistent, showed a lot of promise, but they're unknown, right? So there's promise everywhere. We could get hyped about it, but something is different, like something is different with the vibe. But we're actually on the offensive. It never really felt like we got that wary with Billy. Maybe a little bit during the win streak into the close of signing day last year. Um, the vibe was pretty high, but it's like I feel like in the back of your mind though, you still kind of knew like it's Billy, and he's just gonna be process oriented. He's gonna be frustrating. He's tactically still things are going on, and then when he wasn't hiring an OC, like the vibe is just always kind of like ruin in the back, right? Whereas with this staff right now, first, like we don't actually really know, right? We don't have any real negatives to go off of, but everything it does just makes sense. There's just some juice in there. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but from a Florida standpoint, it feels amazing. I don't think I felt this great to be a Florida fan. I can't even remember. I don't even remember. Maybe I don't know. It's been a long time. So really excited to see what happens. Hopefully everyone that's watching, Gators fans, can share the sentiment. And then for the people that aren't Gator fans, to see why Gator fans are hyped. I think hopefully I capture a little bit of the vibes that's going around.